One of the greatest files in the WordPress template hierarchy theme stack is the ability to create custom with any name.php file. So it's not being named custom.php. It could be page-wide, page-splash, whatever you want to name it. There aren't any real hardcore naming conventions around that, but I will talk about some ideas. So if you don't have one of these, then it will fall back to page.php if you're dealing with a custom template for a static page, or it'll fall back to single.php if you're trying to apply a custom template to a post, which is possible as well. And then of course, both of those fall back to singular.php and then ultimately index.php. So let's take a look at how we could set up a custom PHP template. So we're going to start off with just popping open our page.php. So let's grab our page.php and we'll do a simple file save as, and we're going to save this as template-splash. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a custom template that could be used for any page or post on the site as a special splash page. Now, the naming convention around this, if you're doing something that is just going to be used for pages, you might want to call it something like page-splash, although that may conflict if you have a tag of a page called, or a slug called slash, then that's going to override it. So that could be a potential issue. The same could be said if you want to, if it's a custom template just for posts, then you could call it single dash whatever it is. But I'm going to choose a generic one, and I'm not saying I recommend this for all scenarios. You could call it whatever you want or name it how you want. You could also name it Splash. You could put it in a set of other folders. But for this case, I'm going to call it Template Splash because that makes sense. It's a custom template, and it's going to be Splash, which is somewhat descriptive. So once I save that, I've got my Template Splash, and we'll call it Template Splash. And we've done this a number of times. Let's just go ahead and have this pull in our splash header, and we'll do the same in our footer and have it pull in our splash footer. But we do have to strip out the sidebar, and we're going to throw in that extra class of extended. So this is good, but this is not actually going to get picked up by WordPress yet because we've named it outside of the template hierarchy. It will notice that this file is there, but it won't know what to do with it and where to make it an offering. So what we have to do is add a special PHP comment at the top, and this could go inside of our call here. I'm just keeping them separate for clarity. 2 forward slashes and then template name, and we're going to call this splash page. Adding this specific comment, WordPress will scan all these files. So WordPress will see this comment template name, and then it will pull in whatever appears after that, and it will make it available to WordPress pages by default. Now, if we want it to also work for posts, we have to say template post type, and then we could say post and page. And if we have a custom post type, we could throw that in there as well. But in this case, we just have posts and pages that we're worried about. So when we come into our admin area now, we should see this template splash page available to us. Let's just go ahead and test this out, see if it's working. So if I come in and I'm just editing my sample page here, and on the sidebar under template, which we could see right here, there is now an option for splash page. And if we update that and come over and view the page, we could see, okay, it's now got the splash page. This can be super handy. Hopefully you're thinking, if you haven't already, of all the possibilities of custom types of templates you could do here. I'm just going to go ahead and change it back so we get our navigation back. And then I'll show you that we could come into our blog posts, Hello PHP. Let's go ahead and edit this. And we should now see an option for post attributes, splash page. Now the tricky thing about this, and let me show you this before we save it. Notice how we have the author, we have the replies, and it's loading single.php. Okay, if we update this, because we're pulling in the page, it's going to look different. And what I mean by that is because we're pulling in template parts content page here, then that is going to always display pages, whether it's a post or a page. So one thing you might want to do in this case is do a run a conditional statement and check to see if this is a post type of page, then go ahead and display this. If it's a post type of post, then go ahead and do posts instead, or content. So that could be a little, heads up to you, something else you could take this further with, but this is really just a simple example of how we could set up a a custom template, and we can name it whatever we want, and we could assign it to posts and pages. I'm going to do a quick file save as, and I'm going to do another scenario that I think is pretty common. Sometimes you want to have a default theme that has a sidebar for pages, and then you want to have full width as well. So let's say that we only wanted to have this, well, we'll leave it for both. But if you remove this again, then it's only going to work for pages by default. So we'll leave it in just so that you have reference to that, but maybe we'll change it this way. You don't need to do that, but just trying to change it up, show you some different options here. So it's going to be full width, but instead of that splash header, we just pull that out and we get our normal site. So that's going to be template full width, and it will give us that full site menu. So testing this out on our site again, let's come back to our home page, come into our sample page and edit that, and we can see now full width shows up there. Go ahead, update it, view it, and it's now a full width post, and it's displaying the full width template. Really cool. Again, the possibilities for working with this are really almost unlimited, and I find in most custom projects at some point I'm spinning up a custom template. So go ahead and catch up with what we've done. We created a splash template and we created a full width template, and we could play around with making them available to posts and pages. And then in your own site that you're building along with this, really think about both for posts, what are some maybe custom templates that you might want to have on occasion that are done a little bit differently? And for pages, what are some different page options that you think you might encounter, whether it's just for your own site and your own needs, or if you're building something that might be used for general wider audience, what are some common scenarios there? So there's plenty to practice with the custom.php, and I really encourage you at this point to not just code through what we have done, but take this further in your own project and build out something that really is practical and suits a need there for you, or a potential need, or hey, it's just a cool idea that you thought of and now you could do it with WordPress. So take a stab at that, and then we're going to kind of start shifting gears and picking up some loose ends of the template hierarchy from here on out, starting with looking at 404 page templates.